Now, they always said that you're supposed to start out with an icebreaker, so I have one for you, and I hope you will laugh. When I first got here, you don't understand basic things. And one Saturday, there was definitely some secretive stuff going on, and I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what it was. So I said to my husband, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, they're going to have you a surprise shower." And this was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm thinking, a surprise shower. Okay. We had these big poofy hairdos, they were all pieced. And I'm thinking, if we're going in the shower, wonder how many people are going in with me? And is my hair going to get messed up? Is my eyeliner going to run? And how is this going to work out? And I'm worried about it all day. I didn't dare ask. And then, about 3 o'clock or whatever time, these ladies came, and back then you still went to functions all dressed up with packages. Then I figured out it was a shower of gifts. And then this was always interesting. The Lord, as He would have it, even back then, He set me, I was working in a factory, and He set me next to two really neat ladies. And, one day we got to talking about what we're having for dinner. Well, I was going to have chicken breast, but I thought, now I'm sure it's not called chicken breast, so I said, I'm having chicken chest for dinner tonight. Well, needless to say, they laughed. I said, well, I didn't dare call it chicken breast. I didn't think you would call it that. So there were a lot of those kinds of things that happened, and so anyway. Now, when I got ordained in '05, this was a prophecy given by a lady who, again, had never met me, and this is what she said. Don't try to evaluate it. Speak, obey. Your voice is like a trumpet. It will destroy the walls that they are bound behind. A strong spirit of intercession, and will bring deliverance to the captives. And that didn't make any sense to me in '05. I mean, I was just trying to survive my situation. But I have gotten those all along, and a couple people in this room have given me prophecies, and it's just been amazing. Now, you may say, why do we need to talk about this subject now? The other day on TV they had that 1 in 25 bosses is a pathological narcissist. Now, those people will make your life so cotton-picking miserable that, you're saying, do I need the money that bad? And when I was speaking to this lady up in Hershey, the one lady said, "Oh, please, I have to talk to you before you leave." And afterwards, she said, "I have this boss, drives me crazy," and she was just explaining everything. And I said, "If there's any way that you can leave this job, you will not change them, you cannot work with them. That's really the only option." And it's sad, but that's how it is. Often, these people are now second and third generation of me, myself, and I. There is no more shame or embarrassment associated with any of this. And us people, we are too polite and too nice when we see it. We almost, turn the other way, or they say a little joke and we laugh. And they get away with it again and again. Now, a little while back, I thought to myself, I know I read Proverbs, and I remember when I read Proverbs, there was a lot of it in there about fools, and a lot of it applied. But thank God at the time I really didn't understand it to the point where I understand it now, because had I understood it to that point, it could have gotten me killed, because I would have gotten too confident. And you can only be so confident around those types of people. So one day I Googled it, and someone already did the work for me. And the one scripture that I want to start with is Psalm 36, 1 through 4. An oracle is within my heart concerning the sinfulness of the wicked. There is no fear of God before their eyes, for in his own eyes he flatters himself too much to detect or hate his sin. The word of his mouth are wicked and deceitful, and he has ceased to be wise and to do good. Even on his bed he plots evil. He commits himself to a sinful cause and does reject what is wrong, and does not reject what is wrong. And then as I Googled that, I just want to share some highlights. Most of you here are Bible verse, so I don't need to go into a lot, but this was very interesting. To associate with a fool is both unwise and unpleasant. To some degree, folly is contagious, and associating with the fool tends to diminish our ability to discern truth from error and wisdom from folly. And then 14:7 here says, a fool is bound in his own destruction, and he will inevitably destroy everything in his path. Those who get in his way, to the fool will get hurt. And boy, let me see a show of hands in here who had the misfortune of having someone like that in your family or know of someone like that. Now look around the room. Isn't it something? What is so sad, it's usually a third or more. It is absolutely unbelievable. Then it says, to employ a fool is a tragic mistake. Those who are responsible for hiring employees will want to take special note of the warnings of Proverbs to those who would hire a fool. Now, Mary Crowley, our boss in Home Interiors, she lived by Proverbs. That's how she thought. Now, some time back, I got this book at Ollie's for $2 just as a read on the beach. Well, I had no idea what I was getting into. On page 26, it talks about, how many of you remember Price Club? It was sort of a forerunner to BJ, Sam's Club, Costco's. Okay. This man single-handedly brought that company down. They trusted him, and he worked his way into the top position. Literally, he didn't know what he was talking about, and he literally brought that company down. Now, they go into it that later on they started another company and another company, and then they started to realize the evil that those people have and how they always sneak themselves in and proclaim that they are very knowledgeable and doing all this. And I was just absolutely amazed when I read that. A fool is unrealistic. The fool fails to see things as they are. Reality is distorted by the fool. The fool is undisciplined. Now that is a very big one. That's what's really so bad. He's unreasonable. The fool is unteachable. Anyway, you all know about all this stuff. So anyway, I don't even want to bother going there because this will take too long. But this lady was married to this Jewish man, and one day we were talking about this, and her and I had a very lively discussion. She said, what you're telling me is these people can't change. What you're saying to me is that God can't change them. I said, no, I'm not saying this. I said, yes, God can change anyone, but they have to let go of their free will. They will not let go of their free will because they have manipulated everybody around them, and they feel that they can manipulate God and pretend that they are interested. My husband did get baptized, and I remember that day all the people were saying, oh, you know, he was so strong, I'm sure he's going to change now. And I remember Mary Crowley said one time, there was this guy named Seek who came to all the tent revivals, and he accepted Christ at every one of them. And they one time said to the wife, how come you're not excited? And she said, what you don't understand, Seek leaks. It doesn't last very long. In other words, he's only doing it to get attention. And anyway, this was what was interesting with this lady. This lady has a daughter who has this situation, and we were discussing it at length. And I said, well, she was raised as a Christian, so she has more there that God can touch. But if you have someone that was not even raised in a Christian home, then there really is almost nothing there to want to get them in that direction. And this is what her husband always said, this Jewish man, one convinced against his will is of his own opinion still. And I thought that was pretty good. In case you're thinking only unintelligent people get into this situation, how many of you remember Joan London? She was an anchor on one of the top TV shows. I think she was on the news or whatever. Well, anyhow, one day she was talking, and I have always been someone who watched a lot of autobiographies, and then you can decipher it and you can understand. And one day she was saying about she could never understand when they were on assignment. There always were a bunch of them together. They could have had a wonderful time, but somehow he always had to cause a schism. And he upset the whole apple cart, and everybody was upset. and she couldn't understand it. And as she was talking, of course at that time I didn't understand a lot either, but I understood what she was saying, and I was asking the same questions, but no one seemed to have the answer for it. This is another thing I want to say is when I got this one book about How Family in Love with a Narcissist, I was reading it on the way home from the beach. My daughter-in-law had so many degrees, and as I'm reading, I said, I cannot believe this. You mean to tell me the psychiatric community knew about that, and they're not teaching this in school? There are families, there are children who are suffering about all this. And she said, I'll tell you why this is the case. These people, through their lifestyle, usually wind up in some kind of care, hospital, nursing home, and the family has long said, we're done with them. And if this would be diagnosed as such, the insurance companies wouldn't pay. Then I really got livid. I said, you mean to tell me it's about money again? All these people suffer, but that's where the power is. So isn't it interesting? So how many of you know who Billy Graham is by any chance? Anybody? Okay. Ruth Graham is his daughter. Okay? And I ordered this book by Mary Margaret, and I don't even remember where it was mentioned that I thought I got to get this book. It says, A Broken Heart in Every Pew. Now here I'm going to give you a short version of it. She married someone who was on the Billy Graham crusade, with him, very close. I don't know all the details, but he must have been pretty close to Billy Graham, traveling with him. Now then it goes on to say that by the time she had 3 children and they were in their teen years, early teen years, she had the nerve, she did get enough courage to ask him one day about was he ever unfaithful, and he admitted it. And evidently it wasn't just a one-time thing. Now here's someone that close to a man like that with that discernment lived a double life, and he did not know. Okay? Now, this woman, as she's going through there, she knows scripture, she knows everything. You know that family prayed for that daughter to have a good husband and all that. We all know the routine, okay? So, I just wanted to share that to let you know that this could happen anywhere, and you better learn this so you can identify it and it doesn't get near your house, okay? Her second husband, she met in church. She was married to him for 3 months, and then she had to get a restraining order and leave town, move out of town, okay, move out of state really. Then she said she got married a 3rd time. Now this is what this Dr. Alf said. She said, people who marry a person like that usually do get in with someone else similar, not to that extent. So be very careful if you ever get interested in anyone. And they're often give a redemptive gift. That was just so amazing. Now I also had a boss that was like that. This was so funny. By then I already knew the routine. And there were like 5 of us that were going to her house for meetings. And if you didn't adore her, everything that she said, everything she did, she did not like you. Well, they just gushed over her, and I said, wait about 6 months until you see the real her, and she will destroy you and your team and cost you all kind of grief and money. You'll sing a different tune. Well, they didn't believe me, and I was sort of chuckling to myself, and I thought, well, I warned them. Needless to say, that's exactly what happened. Now, Mary Margaret can back me up on that. This one gal came to town. She was from Columbia, toting 3 children, and our Church of the Brethren collected $600 for her. Mary Margaret had her move in with her. I took her to the beach, let her stay at my house. She ran up my phone bill, calling the psychic hotlines. She wasn't there a day. She got some guy there with her. Unbelievable stuff. Oh, well, here, that was the one straw that broke the camel's back. After that, I realized never ever to try to help somebody like that. Now, what was interesting is, towards the end, when she was just living around the corner from me down up at Fairfield, and I went by to see her one time for some reason, she literally had every organization in the county doing for her. There was somebody there all the time. It was absolutely amazing. So they know how to work the system, is what I'm trying to tell you. Now, as I was going through all this, I do want to say this. He was just mean, vindictive, and he never hit me or anything like that. And I also knew certain things not to do. He had that artery here on the side, and when that thing started to jump, I knew I better leave the house or something, you know, so it was one of those things. Plus he had 2 brothers who went to jail because he beat people, so he didn't want to go that route. So he was just kind of very vindictive, undermining, and things like that. I was at a retreat, and they had one of those afternoons where they give you 2 hours, you know, to be in the presence of God. I wandered into this little Catholic chapel, and I literally heard the audible voice of God, and here's what it said. And you know, that was, I didn't know about all this. Believe me, it scared the living super out of me. And what it said was, don't throw your pearls to the swine, and that is Matthew 7:6. And I wish I'd have read the rest of it, because it says something along the lines, lest they destroy you. And then also, the other one was, be wise as a dove, be wise as a serpent, innocent as a dove, and that's Matthew 10:16. Now, I was so shook, I went back to my car because I needed to sit down somewhere familiar, and I went and sat down, and I had read a book, and when I read a book, I always have it like this wherever I'm at, and I'm laying it down. I go pick up the book, and I turn it over, and would you believe that scripture was there? And back then I didn't know anything about confirmation, but it was just absolutely unbelievable when that came together. So then I said, okay, God, all right, you don't want me to do this, you don't want me to do that, what do I do now? And just recently, I talked to a gal, and she said, what do you do when you recognize it? And I said, well, when I left that chapel that day, when that happened, I felt what I needed to do is back up some. Like, for instance, if someone is right here, they can truly hurt you physically, okay? When you allow someone, of course, if you're husband and wife, you're supposed to be this close. And when someone is that close, then they can also emotionally hurt you. And what I did when I got home is I sort of kept a distance, spiritually and emotionally, so he would not be able to hurt me to that point. Now, of course, what they do then is they really turn up the heat then, because they think somewhere along the line they'll outsmart you. And then the warfare really started. Now, I want you to recognize these people because they are everywhere. One, they do not have any long-time friends, because sooner or later everybody figures them out, okay? They have job instability. They're here and there and everywhere. They do not plan for the future. I remember when I started making good money in home interiors, I wanted to buy apartments for retirement and so on. Well, all he saw was, there's money for me to do things now. And he wanted to go on hunting trips and this, that, and the other. They do not plan for the future. Instant gratification, lack of responsibility. They live life at others' expense. They have costly hobbies, constant need for noise and entertainment. They live unhealthy. They alcohol, drugs, sex with anyone, that doesn't matter if they're married or not, gambling, bad eating habits, live a life at others' expense. Many a grandparent have lost everything because their grandchildren have turned out to be these spoiled, rotten brats. And, you know, they're wanting to do, and they enable them. So you need to recognize this. Now, body language, you hear so much about body language. This is what I figured out myself. This is not the professional body language, but here's how they usually stand. They stand a little further back, like, I'm so great. Does this remind you of somebody? And they always had that perpetual grin on their face. Like, I'm so smart, you're all so stupid, I have you fooled. And I tell you what, I have really gotten good at this. And I'm telling you, there's lots of movie stars, there are lots of politicians, almost anybody in power. It's almost like a third when you really start to recognize it. And I keep a lot of nods here. In other words, when you have it, you can tell it a mile off, can't you? They brag about themselves all the time. They're haughty. They dress perfectly. Usually someone else pays for their clothes. Use other people's accomplishments as their own. A lot of mouth, very little fruit. No track record of any of their own. No rules, and they explode easily. When they don't get their way, watch out. They set you up. Everything says you are so lucky to have them at the beginning. Then they come in for the kill. They already have someone else groomed for the next victim, then you no longer are impressed with their shenanigans. They are good at discrediting you. Smart people are blindsided. The way they turn things around makes your head spin. I remember I was with this lady and she said, I went to court and my husband explained the situation. He was seeing this woman and he claimed he never seen her. He didn't know her. Of course, after they got the divorce, a month later she moved in. She said he told the story so well that she literally had to leave the courtroom and shake herself off. And she said, if I would have not been the victim, I'd have believed it myself. And that's how good they are. I mean, it's sad but true. I remember a counselor saying that he was counseling this woman. And by the way, I do want to say there are women are like that too. I don't want to say it's only men. There are women like that too, and probably when you look around your friends, you probably know some of your friends who had the misfortune of getting in with a woman like this. And this counselor said that morning they had a little problem, a little tiff with him and his wife, and that woman was so sensitive in picking up on that, and the next thing you know, she was counseling him. And he said that they are so sensitive in reading your mind almost. And they will do and say what they think you want to hear just to get their own way. The one counselor also said that sex with anybody is always a part of this deal. I was in Ocean City and we were in prayer, and this one lady, she started to sob, and I knew that sob. And afterwards we had lunch and we were sitting on the swings together, and I said, do you know anything about narcissism by any chance? And she almost fell off the swing. She said, yes, I do. Why do you ask? And I said, well, I sort of heard you cry, and I've been there. Believe me, I could kind of tell. And we got to talking, and I was telling her what I knew. And she said, well, the one thing that I don't have to worry about, he definitely doesn't fool around. And I said, well, two things. He's either so good you have no clue, or he's not capable. I said, believe me, every counselor has always said that is a part of the deal. Sad but true. Now, they always disappear, and you better not ask where they have been. And besides, why bother? They don't lie to you anyhow. That's another thing is they are perpetual liars. They lie just to lie. And I think it's a contest that they can tell lies and never be caught. I think that's what it is. They know best, my way, only their agenda, no reality check, nothing is their fault. They manipulate to have power and control. They are so convincing. They fool everyone except their family and their children. They are charmers. They create themselves in a favorable light. They need to be stroked. Their ego needs to be stroked constantly. When they are exposed, then it was a joke. You have no sense of humor. You are no fun. It is at someone else's expense, of course. Now, lately, I sort of started talking at different places about this, and the one thing that everyone has said is what infuriates them the most is when in public they will put their arm around them, they act nice, and around their children they're nice when they're in public, and the minute they get behind closed doors, then they are that other person. So this way they fool everybody. Now here's another interesting thing is when they know the jig is up, then they come at you. Well, you know you're a Christian. You're supposed to forgive me 7 times 7. You know you're supposed to give unconditional love. You know they know all the scriptures. Believe me. That's the time they do listen in church when it's in their favor, but they don't pay attention to what they should or should not do. One day I was listening to a lady named Jane Nagley, and I'm usually bad with names, but I remember her name. It wasn't a glow meeting, and she was sharing her testimony. And of course her husband was for her and for her children, and afterwards we got in prayer. I forget how it was anymore. And I mean, I thought to myself, lady, you have no clue. You have no clue. And it's so sad, so many people in the church truly have no clue. Like Ruth Graham says, there's a broken heart in every pew, and you'd be surprised. Now, we're getting to who can be helped and who